All right, let's talk about something that shapes our lives way more than we probably realize. The 12-hour day. It's kind of like this shadow that stretches all the way from the past right into our lives today. And honestly, understanding it, it might just completely change how you look at your own daily grind.
So let's kick things off with a pretty big question. Just think about this for a second. How much of our modern grandeur, all the great stuff we have, still depends on the invisible labor of people we just choose to ignore? It's a heavy one, right? And it really forces you to look a little closer. To find the answer, we've actually got to take a trip back in time.
And that is exactly where we meet someone named Alice. The year is 1906. Her story, well, it's the key to unlocking this whole system, a system that, you'll see, still echoes today. So Alice's world, it was completely defined by this invisible 12-hour day. We're talking about a system built entirely on work that was designed from the ground up to never, ever be seen. And Alice was not alone. Not even close. In the early 1900s, domestic servants made up, get this, nearly 30% of Britain's entire female workforce. That's over 1 million women. 1 million! All of their days were just consumed by this kind of service.
So what are we even talking about with invisible labor? Well, think of it like this. It's work that is absolutely essential for everything to run smoothly. But, and this is the crazy part, it's intentionally designed so that the people benefiting from it don't notice it at all. The whole point is to create this seamless perfection that looks completely effortless.
For Alice, her day was just this long series of what the source calls pointless demands. I mean, scrubbing floors before the sun was even up, washing these delicate mosaic tiles with milk just so they would shine a certain way, obsessively stirring eggs just to make sure the yolk stayed perfectly in the center. You see, these tasks aren't really about being clean. They're about completely erasing any evidence that work ever happened.
Okay, so that whole relentless, totally draining cycle, it might sound like something from a dusty history book, right? But its echo is so much louder than you think. It's just morphed. Today, it's become a modern battle, a battle we're all fighting against our own biology.
And this is where it gets really interesting, where the past and the present just collide. Take a look. On the left, you've got a 1906 housemaid. Her 12-plus hour day is all about physical exhaustion, all for the sake of being invisible. And on the right, a modern teenager. Their 12-plus hour shift of school, homework, and extracurriculars, it's a battle against sleep deprivation, all for the sake of achievement. The details are different, but that core struggle, it's almost spookily the same.
And look, this isn't just about, I'm feeling a little tired. This is a deep, fundamental biological mismatch. Waking a teenager up at 6 a.m. is, for their body, the same as waking an adult up at 4 a.m. I mean, just think about that. We are literally asking them to function on a schedule their bodies are not built for. And the consequences of fighting this biological war every single day, they're just devastating. We're not just talking about bad moods or grade slipping, no. Chronic sleep deprivation is linked to a shocking 58% increase in suicide attempts among teenagers. Let that sink in. This is a full-blown public health crisis that's just hiding in plain sight.
The source we're looking at puts it perfectly. This constant, unwinnable fight against their own bodies makes them as functionally useless and irritable as a zombie. That's the word they use. They're technically awake, sure, but they are not really there.
So that raises a pretty big question, right? If our bodies are just screaming for a break, how have we as a society managed to just keep pushing past the breaking point for so long? Well, that brings us to what you could call the fuel of endurance.
This timeline here, it tells a really fascinating and frankly pretty troubling story. It all starts back in the 1800s with the West African kola nut, which has about twice the caffeine of coffee. It was used to extract more labor from enslaved people. Then you fast forward to 1910. Ernest Shackleton's crew in Antarctica, they're using something called forced march tablets, which are a mix of cocaine and that same kola nut just to survive. And then, right in the middle, in 1886, that exact same combination of stimulants becomes the original secret recipe for Coca-Cola. It was literally marketed as a tonic, a cure for exhaustion. You can see this direct line from forced labor to consumer product.
And this whole history of just pushing past our natural limits, it hasn't gone anywhere. We are literally living in its relics right now in a culture that feels constantly tired but wired.
So, why does any of this history matter today? Because we are still living inside the remnants of these old systems. Think about it. Our culture basically measures success by how good you are at ignoring your body's limits. We're all encouraged to have this tired but wired mentality, constantly pushing through the exhaustion, just fueled by the modern versions of those old tonics. Coffee, energy drinks, you name it.
But is there another way? Do we just have to accept this? That brings us to our final section, which is all about finding your survival system, an alternative to this never-ending 12-hour grind.
To find that alternative, let's look at the story of the city of Edo. It's an amazing counterexample. This was a city that was right on the brink of total ecological collapse, but it managed to completely transform itself into a sustainable hub, all by embracing one simple but totally revolutionary idea.
And that big idea was a principle called just enough. It's this philosophy of sustainability and well-being that focuses on sufficiency, on having what you actually need, instead of chasing endless, relentless growth and productivity. I mean, that's a complete 180 from the way we usually think, right?
And really, this gets to the heart of it all. Maybe real greatness isn't about being a perfect, non-stop productive machine. Maybe, just maybe, it comes from having the vulnerability to admit when we're feeling clunky, when we're just being human, and then building a survival system that actually works for us, for our hearts, and not just for the clock.
So, that leaves us with one last question to really think about. The next time you find yourself pushing through, just totally exhausted, stop and ask yourself, who is all this work really for? And is it worth making your own well-being invisible?